Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KB. We are back once again to bring you a SmackDown recap, which took place on January 30th, 2026, and is the go home show for the Royal Rumble set to take place tomorrow in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Due to the tight window we're working with here, going up against Royal Rumble tomorrow afternoon, if you're in the States, wanted to get this video out, so I will not have any SmackDown pictures, but per usual, we'll go through every single match and kind of go through what happened and kind of give you our thoughts on that. We kick off the show with the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, who gets quite the ovation from the local Riyadh crowd. Cody addresses the ongoing beef with both Fatu and McIntyre, but then says he's going after that third Rumble or that third Rumble win, and paints a few pictures for what they could look like if he does in fact winning, who he would go after. He's interrupted by Randy Orton, and if you thought that pop for Cody was loud, the Orton one was next level. After a bit of crowd work from Randy, he goes on to say people don't realize how dangerous a hungry Cody Rhodes is, but even more dangerous is a Viper chasing his 15th world title. It then enters Jey Uso. At this point, I'm expecting 27 other men to come down to the ring and kind of let us know, why their chances remain high for tomorrow's Rumble. And Jey does some yeeting per usual, and then he basically says he's going to go back to back. And then we are graced with the presence of Sami Zayn ahead of his Undisputed WWE Championship tomorrow night. Sami basically paints a picture and says there are three things that are going to happen for tomorrow. That is, he's going to get that WWE Championship that has always eluded him in his career. He's going to write that 0-11 record against Drew, and he's going to make sure he continues his undefeated streak in Saudi. And then we are joined by Paul Heyman, the ladies and gentlemen, and of course joined by Bronson Reed, Logan, Austin, and Braun. The vision in its entirety, per usual, Heyman comes down and provides spoilers and says that none of you guys are winning. It will actually be Braun Breaker that wins tomorrow night. And then we are joined by Nick Aldis, who comes out and gives us his best Teddy Long impression and says that the main event tonight will be an 8-man tag match between the Vision and the likes of Cody, Randy, Sami, and Jey. So a 30-minute promo to kick off the show. Sometimes you sit here and wonder, how they're going to constantly fill up a 3-hour show. But if this is going to, become the new norm, and, this isn't the first time they've done something like this, kick off the show with that kind of long entrance there. I would prefer more matches, but with this kind of formula, it's not hard to see how they'll fill up that 3 hours. But all this was fun enough to kind of see, the crowd reactions to these big personalities. It was far from anything new, and we did not see the wheel reinvented here by any means. Then getting into our first match of the evening, and we assume it's going to be a good one with this kind of being the continuation of Carmelo Hayes' United States Championship Open, this time answered by none other than Rey Fenix. Probably the smallest pop of the night so far, and that's a separate discussion for another day. But this has me excited at the possibility what these two are capable of. And as expected, this match is incredible. Quite fond of both Carmelo and Rey, but even if you're not, you can't help but be entertained by this match. Back and forth, high flying, but in the end, Carmelo hits a first 48 and nothing but net to defeat Rey Fenix, and still your U.S. champion is Carmelo Hayes. We then see the team of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss make their way down to the ring. Charlotte talks about the Women's Rumble and how she plans on winning the Rumble tomorrow night for a third time. Alexa counters saying she plans to win the Rumble, and she was the first women's match in the Middle East for WWE, and that she plans on becoming the first woman to win a Royal Rumble here as well. Both women are less than pleased to hear the plans that they don't coincide with their own, and then we are interrupted by the Judgment Days, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, and Raquel Rodriguez. And at this point, I'm thinking, are they going to do the same thing they did at the beginning of the show with the men? Are they going to have a bunch of women come down here and interrupt and kind of do the same little shtick? But some words are exchanged here, but before Nick Aldis comes down again, earning his pay tonight, to announce that talk is cheap, but instead we'll go ahead and have a 2-on-2 tag match here. So getting into that actual match here, we have Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan. They take control of this match for the majority, really gelling well together as they should, keeping the most fresh tag participant in the ring, working on Bliss, and then that is until Charlotte does get that hot tag This is kind of really where the tide turns. Charlotte elects to get the momentum, but then Raquel tries to help the Judgment Day get the momentum back. But once again, Stephanie Vaquer comes down in the situation, takes out Raquel, and then evens the odds just like that. Alexa hits a Sister Abigail to Roxy to get the win for Charlexa. I have no idea what happened to Roxy, but she had a pretty nasty. Her face was covered in blood, like one side of her face covered in blood, looked like she was going out to war or something. But you could tell it definitely affected her a bit. But regardless, this was a fun enough contest, and further reminded us that we are going to get that Raquel versus Vaquer match on Monday in a Philadelphia street fight for that women's world championship. So just in case you don't have enough to look forward to over the next few days of wrestling, there's one more thing for you. The next match of the night has Johnny Gargano not with Candice LeRae, as Nick Aldis banned her from ringside just before they were making their way out to the ring. Again, very busy Nick Aldis tonight. He does have that blue mask of Axiom still, though, as they took that back even after Axiom won it back last week, but this time Johnny Gargano is going up with Axiom again for that mask. The ending comes with Johnny Gargano taking off Axiom's mask once again, but Axiom is able to put on his old blue mask that was still happened to be sitting in the corner there of the ring, and he then hits a golden ratio to get the win over a Candice-less Johnny Gargano. This story for me got a bit dull, and hopefully that's the end of it. Axiom now has both of his masks back, and now Johnny no longer has Ciampa. Yes, so I'm still a bit salty about that. So yeah, hopefully both these teams or guys can move on to the next thing on their agenda. We are then joined by the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. He goes on to talk about all the matches he's looking forward to after this weekend at the Royal Rumble with this match against Gunther. Of course, he is then interrupted by the Ring General himself, and he goes on to call AJ delusional to think that he's wrestling after tomorrow night. Gunther goes on to say that he's going to make AJ tap out just like he did Cena. AJ retorts and says it's funny because Gunther is the one that has a history of tapping out like a little bitch. Gunther, taking offense to this, removes his jacket as if he's going to go into the ring and do something about it, but then, of course, decides better of it. So, really nothing new here, just reminding us once again, as if we haven't been thinking about it nonstop since the match was made, that this could potentially be the last AJ Styles match. But yeah, just in case you need a reminder, there's a gentle one for you. We then get into our next match, which has The Miz going against Ilia Dragunov. Ilia obviously looking for some sort of revenge after last week The Miz cost him by interfering in his U.S. title match. Despite earlier in the show, The Miz trying to say that the fault lies on Carmelo as he was the one in on it. Pretty funny to see the expression on The Miz's face before this match, watching Ilia come out and realizing he has made a big mistake. Torpedo, Moscow, and then an H-bomb from the Mad Dragon sees him getting the victory here, and perhaps a bit of revenge on The Miz, but yeah, we'll see if that's kind of good enough. The Miz hopefully did learn his lesson there. But week in, week out, Ilia continues to impress, at least me. Everything he does has my eyes glued to the screen. He's just such a unique talent. His character and kind of just his in-ring work is just super fascinating, super unique, and always has me looking forward to him. So this was no exception. We then get into our main event as advertised to kick off the show. Bronson Reed, Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and Braun Breaker going up against Cody, Randy, Jay, and Sammy. And this one got started before the match could even, the bell could even ring. Clearly a good amount of bad blood between the Vision and the Four here. You could argue the entire roster at this point, and we kind of hit this on the Royal Rumble predictions. I do think that could come into play tomorrow night, and don't forget that interesting interaction they had with Adam Pearce earlier in the week. But also, say what you want about 6-man tags, or in this case, 8-man tags thrown together and whatnot. But this one did really have a big match feel to it, regardless of what we actually do end up getting. But, just to start it off, felt like it was a big ordeal. But towards the end of this match, I'm sitting here thinking, who they're going to have win here, genuinely not knowing who should. But not long after, I kind of have this thought. Drew then comes down, is seen to the side of the ring, drags out Sammy as he's about to line up a haluva kick on Braun Bronson Reed. But Drew isn't able to deal out much before Jacob Fatu then comes down to the ring. And then Cody Rhodes, of course, gets involved here too. As Drew is getting set up for a Claymore kick on Cody, Sammy makes his way back to the ring and lands a haluva kick on Drew. And after this, Sammy looks down at that Undisputed WWE Championship very longingly. But before he can actually pick it up, Cody's hand then comes into the screen and we see him try to pick up the title as well. The crowd not a big fan of this at all, but needn't you worry, because Braun Breaker then comes back into the ring and spears them both for their troubles. And that's how this episode of SmackDown before the Rumble ends. Overbooked just a tad, you could argue, absolutely. But honestly, that's just kind of how drama-filled and, stacked this main event men's division is right now. Everyone kind of jockeying for position. The match itself was decent, but for me, I think it was obviously more about all of the twists we got there after the match. Braun Breaker sitting tall there, perhaps a sign of things to come tomorrow at the Rumble. We shall wait and see. And so with that SmackDown recap in the books, the Carmella versus Phoenix match for the U.S. title absolutely being the highlight for me. A lot of other of these segments and matches really had kind of go home vibes to them. Kind of definition of a go home show for me. Maybe just a tad better, but not much more. But just like that, I don't really care that much just because we're that close to the Rumble, and I think that's all anyone really, cares about. But if I had to give this one a rating, I probably would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely on the lower end of shows we've seen over the past month or so. But like I said, everyone's just thinking about the Royal Rumble, and that's really all that matters at this point. So enough about us. What did you make of this episode of SmackDown? Please let us know in the comments below. And as always, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. Just like that, we are less than 24 hours away from the Royal Rumble. Looking forward to it. And of course, we'll be back for that reactions video shortly after that ends tomorrow. So looking forward to seeing you all then. But until then, enjoy your weekend of wrestling. And with that, this has been the latest episode of The Push with Nick and KP. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.